So with God of War Ragnarök, there's multiple ways to map inputs in the controller, ways to use the touchpad, swipe. We really want to cater to the wide as well for God of War. In the case, there actually are different sticks that you could use. There's the default on the PS5 controller, but then there's these low domes and the high domes, and I chose the low domes. They're like the classic DualShock analog sticks from before.
In God of War, your attacks are in aiming, so I ended up using the low stops for the triggers to make them feel more like regular buttons.
With the adjustable trigger stops, the R2 button, we use it as more responsive. It feels more like a straight
sprint over to the left, the map lock on over to the right. But I think what I really settled on was weapon switching, just because of the speed and
sticks the whole time. In the middle of combat, look around freely, move freely, and change weapons when you want. And I think finding the right fit for you and being able to map them to buttons.
Just using the function buttons to immediately go into in-game UI.
There's kind of a guided tutorial that kind of walks you through the settings that you need to do.
So it allowed me to kind of just make a lot of changes.
And then it led me into changing the stick sensitivity. And in God of War Ragnarok, you want to move the character fairly quickly, especially in the middle of combat. So the left analog stick, I set that to the quick setting of them. There's a function button on the controller, and being able to kind of hot swap the profiles to say, hey, in this game, the back buttons are the weapon switches, but in this other game, they could value just being easy and just in the controller, you can press it at any time you want, is something that I think a lot of players are going to enjoy. Trigger dead zones. What that means is that you can control when the input is registered on how you press the triggers over here. So I actually increased the default setting past a certain amount by just adding a little bit of that dead zone in there. I wasn't getting any accidental trigger presses, and using that along with the trigger stop meant that, just overall the triggers felt more like responsive buttons.
So, we know that some people like to attack on squares, some people like, all sorts of button mappings. We have all that in the game already, and the DualSense Edge just kind of lets you take that to another level.
Having the back buttons have